Okay, so this week we're going to talk about
really beginning to mix it up out of the middle innings.
Bill Clinton, and a little bit
misses
about
downstairs.
the first George
That last
Bush
pitch to Miller last inning.
Goes with the fastball.
Just to give you an example,
it looks like
Seattle,
it just caught the top of the strike zone. Miller didn't think so. I can't blame him for being upset with it.
Sure. Organization protest.
Strikes out, come back to Snell.
Global free trade
snatches that. 2 down.
And that it would hurt the Earth's ecology with unregulated
Mitch Moreland for his third at bat today.
They also talked about the white.
So far, Xander is 0 for 3. Look at that pitching line.
The reason why it was in
4 2/3.
Why Seattle was such a big deal is
one of the runs earned because of that big error by Miller,
by which people,
which occurred in the second inning when the Red Sox scored 3 times,
and culture flow freely
on a drop at second base that would have ended the inning on a flip from the shortstop. It was not a difficult play.
What we'll talk about today is the collapse of communism opened up all the world. And
Moreland today with a strikeout and a grounded to short.
Bill Clinton talk of an American mission to create a single global free market that as a path to living standards, democracy, and
ever since he's gone to the stretch position, he's been pitching much better. Has Snell dropped the windup early in the ball game, was not feeling comfortable with it.
Pitch number 100 and a cut and a miss.
In the late 80s.
Now, who makes that decision? Is that Jim Hickey who comes to him and says, hey, try this?
I would probably say it's a combination of both. You know, I'm not sure a young pitcher like that would go up and tell the pitching coach, look, this is what I'm going to do. You know, it's probably the pitching coach that recommended it to him. Look, your stuff out of the stretch has been much better than your windup today. Let's just go out of the stretch.
Killing an unknown number, and it could have possibly been in the thousands.
I think a veterin guy might make that decision on his own.
I don't really know exactly what's going on. No one knows.
1-2 on Moreland. Young would be next.
In the fall of 1989,
I don't think any pitching coach would argue with a pitcher who's going to make that kind of suggestion. You know, if I just don't feel right, well then, okay, go on to the stretch if you want.
Made it clear that he would not intervene. Then on November 9th,
he's had some very good staffs.
People climb over the wall.
He was a pitching coach for those years where David Price was the ace of the staff for the Rays.
Began claiming independence after that.
Price getting closer and closer. Through yesterday,
all separate entities.
John Farrell said making progress, everything's going in the right direction, no setbacks. Red Sox now have to determine whether he's going to do another side session or if he's going to pitch against live hitters. And a swing and a miss. You're right, working from the stretches really improved him. He gets a 1-2-3.
South America
Sox on top 4-2.
A very, very segregated society up until the 1990s. It still is today, but South Africa, excuse me. And in 1994, he becomes the president. But the main idea here is because the USSR is crumbling, this is a world that's dominated by the United States. It's what Bush calls a New World Order.
By dreamers.
We also get the Gulf War in 1990. In 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait.
See where the train can take you.
We and other people were afraid then that Saddam Hussein would then attack Saudi Arabia, which in the 1990s was the United States' biggest oil producer. So the United States rushed troops to defend the Kingdom of Kuwait.
This is Bill's yard, and Bill has a
Operation Desert Storm is what it was also called. That quickly drove Iraq out of Kuwait, and then the United Nations imposed sanctions on them. But Hussein stayed.
So Bill can clear out weeds at the same time
they didn't overthrow Saddam Hussein, which will be President George Bush's son. He will do that. And there's also a large U.S. contingent that remained in the area, and that makes a lot of people mad. Once we're there, we kind of stay there. Now, America's role in the world is that the Gulf War was a step in the direction for making the world rooted in democracy and free trade. General Colin Powell, who will also be Secretary of State under the second George Bush, has had a lot lot of bad things are going to happen in this world, and we cannot be the world's policeman. We need to fight the wars we can. So basically what's happening now is
$50 for every Red Sox hit this month to the Greg Hill Foundation, committed to improving the lives of local families affected by tragedy. Learn more at EchoStore.com. EchoStore Technologies, your data center solutions provider.
General Powell says that's just not
6th inning, Red Sox add 4-2, and that'll be a strike on Souza.
Now Dick Cheney, who is an advisor under the first George Bush and will be George Bush.
He is singled. He's also driven in a run with a ground out.
The second George Bush says we need to be the world policeman so that all of these new states that
Morrison
are
and Weeks
states because of the
flick down the right field line, they'll slice out of play.
We got to make sure that they become democratic and want to trade with us.
Right, looking to build on these last couple of innings where he's been sharp.
Now.
Yeah, very good. You know, starting in the fourth inning, 1, 2, 3, got the double play in the fifth, followed by the strikeout. And you can see him pitching with more confidence right now.
Good, young, charismatic politician that was fairly unknown until
Gotta be a bit of a helpless feeling for a pitching coach who never threw a knuckleball.
He actually won.
Yeah, you know, but I think their relationship gets so close, you know,
it's the economy, stupid.
They obviously learn from the pitcher himself, and there are certain trigger points that they watch for, and they're able to see through video. And
that's it. They had a fine play on the right side of the diamond.
He's had a nice day defensively. You know, he
movement of social liberty.
Makes that diving play right there. Your ball hit very hard, not diving, excuse me, but exploding. He falls after that, and then he's able to spin because he's on that second base side and still have plenty of time to throw out the runner. That ball was a bullet in his direction.
End welfare as we know it. He wanted to create.
Got a very strong throwing arm, doesn't he?
That the United States
he's a strong kid.
Not have to support a large.
I think he's going to hit some home runs for the Red Sox too.
George Bush was hurt by the economy.
0 for 2, and Wright has had his number. He has whipped him twice.
Yeah, you know, because we're suited up, I didn't wear those sneakers today, but I brought them with me on the road trip. So if I throw on some jeans, you know, you're going to see those brand new sneakers. They're really nice. I like them.
I really can't wait to see them.
Darren's right. They're comfortable.
Completely through
very light,
all of what
incredibly light.
Bill Clinton did.
Thanks to New Balance for those.
Yes.
He put Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court.
High fly to right field, and Betts on the move. Still moving back. Wynn takes it, and Mookie Betts going all the way into the corner for that. And it just kept on going and took a bounce, and it's going to be a double.
He raised taxes on the wealthy.
And the wind really grabbed it looked like.
Income credit,
and Mookie just could not chase it down.
And it's hard to tell exactly what happened with Mookie on this one because you don't see him have those type of problems in the outfield. I don't know if he lost it for a second and didn't see it because of the sun. And there's no question the wind, which is blowing out in that direction, took that ball deeper. But I think the hesitation here meant that he lost that ball for a second in the sun. That's just a guess. But I wouldn't be surprised he says so after the game.
Weeks thought he had hit it out. He's in a home run trot there.
Well, he's going to have to go back to second base. We don't give home runs. The balls that bounce into the stands. That's not speeding up the game.
Fluid,
or pace of game,
and less taxes, so that people could move goods and people easier across the borders. Now there's quite a bit more that we'll talk about NAFTA, but we can't get into it. That would be kind of an interesting thing to do your PowerPoint on because we're still discussing NAFTA today. What his wife Hillary Clinton tried to do while she was First Lady was revamp healthcare and get healthcare for all Americans because millions did not have it.
Downtown stop and nonstop productivity.
And so she was kind of one of the front runners besides Richard Nixon to really try to get health care for all Americans. But it was way too complex and would have just expanded the bureaucracy. So it was crushed in 1994. But since Clinton did not accomplish much his first 2 years in office, for the first time since the 1950s, Congress became Republican dominated. And this is when a man by the name of Newt Gingrich kind of comes.
It is brought to you by Lexus and the Lexus Strikes Out Hunger Program. Digital Federal Credit Union, see what DCU can save you. Subaru Retailers of New England. Buy Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. And by True Green, America's #1 professional lawn care company. Start today. Live life outdoors. What a day to be outdoors.
And in December, the government
Patriots Day, and all that great tradition here at Fenway Park at the early start. Steve Wright getting better and better as the day has progressed.
He certainly has. And, you know, after a couple of rocky starts, you have a shaky first inning, and you say, oh, man, is this going to continue through this game? And he really settled down in it. And you can see that he's pitching with much more confidence from about the fourth inning on in this game.
No activity right now in the Red Sox bullpen. Right-hander Hunter on, and that one ripped into left field for a base hit by Chris Young. He really torched it. His first hit today is 1 for 3.
So, for example,
time for a game break now brought to you by George's the Furniture Store of the Boston Red Sox, and here's TC.
800,000 people, and we didn't do anything about it because of economic and geopolitical reasons. The Balkans, places like Siberia, Macedonia, Croatia, those places near Greece.
That's right, just a few people running in the streets.
There began ethnic cleansing there.
Here's Sandy Leon now, 1 for 2 with a base hit.
The United States.
Snell went the first 5, and he's on the hook.
In 1999, launches airstrikes against Serbians who are killing thousands of Albanians and Croats
now even
because
at 8.
They are Muslim. So we actually fought Christians in the
Balkans with a base hit and a run scored in the second.
And 800,000.
Might go back today and look back at that second inning as the most pivotal inning. For a couple of different reasons. The Red Sox got 3 runs, took a 4-2 lead. There was a huge error in that game, in that inning, earlier in the game.
Then Leon got the base hit, the big error, walk.
Without question.
And then Benintendi with the base hit
so
drive in 2.
In 2000, when he leaves office, unemployment was below 4%.
That's also with an RBI net, and he got it picked off. And a dead duck, Young, out at first base, and nowhere to go.
We get what is known as
the question there is, you know, was it a straight-out steal or was it a hit-and-run play going to be put on? It looks like a straight-out steal because if a hit-and-run play is put on, you're not trying to get a good jump. You know, you're not going to be leaning towards second base. And clearly, right there, he was, and that tells me that it was probably a straight-out steal.
First computers came into being in World War II
and it will be a caught stealing.
Vast amounts of data.
But in the
1960s, if you've seen the movie Hidden Figures.
So they're empty now for Sandy Leon.
It begins
flies that one to left. Dickerson right there, sizing it up shy of the track.
Created the need for microchips, which are imprinted circuits.
2 away for the Red Sox. Marco Hernandez will be next.
What goes from there is they get smaller and smaller and have.
For the victory today, the Red Sox would get a drop play at second.
Chips, we have things like cellular phones, digital cameras.
Got tied up for strike 1.
Hunter still has that good live fastball. That last one was a cutter, but the cutter was 94.
Digital cameras, Game Boys, etc. And a lot of
the right-hander Chase Whitley loosening in their bullpen.
He just called up.
We know this.
Yesterday.
Interestingly enough, your phone has way more memory than the first computer that sent Neil Armstrong to the moon.
Pedroia next.
Right, it's incredible.
But that's up to Hernandez.
I know a lot of
them down.
Always had cell phones, but cell phones are an enormous.
And the 0-2. Made quick work of Marco Hernandez. Just 3 pitches.
Computers also
go to the 7th, 4-2 Sox.
Private life, because by 2000, nearly half of all people have a personal computer. And that's for entertainment and for work. And the internet in the early 2000s is really starting to be developed.
There's a story waiting
and
to
this,
be told.
The internet was first used as high-speed military communication network between buildings.
By those who want a
but
downtown
it becomes nowadays
productivity
one of the most radical inventions in the history of man.
And adventurers.
Right? It really is. When you think about the internet and what the internet allows people to do,
see where the
it
train
completely
can take
revolutionizes the way that human beings live. And not only their public life, but their private life as well. And you get what people call in the early 2000s, you probably don't remember this, is netizens, citizens who live on the internet, right? Whose whole life revolves around that. And there are a lot of people like that today. Right? You just can't do anything without the internet. Like, take this class.
The very first time.
You also have a little changing economy in the year 2000. There's a stock market boom and a bust, and it hits large investors and small investors. It hits almost everyone because everyone really began to invest as the market rises in the 1990s. Really, in the 1980s, 1990s, a lot of people's retirement, 401k, think of all of those things that people do that's all based on the stock market. And so by 2000, a majority of Americans, in one way, shape, or form, had either stocks or were on the stock market through mutual funds. And there's also this very large attraction to .com companies that are springing up everywhere and becoming worth large amounts of money overnight. And
brought to you by Ace Ticket as he moves into the 7th and approaching 100 pitches.
Companies began
just the one walk has certainly helped him. That came way back in the first
really
inning.
Symbolizes the promise of a new economy.
And he's on top 4-2. It'll be Beckham, the 9-man, then Dickerson and Kiermaier for Tampa Bay.
The stock market would not keep rising. It was inevitable that the bubble would burst. And on April 14th,
Beckham this afternoon, 2 ground outs, 2 Xander Bogaerts and
the
short.
stocks had the largest one-day drop in history, even more so than the Great Depression in 1929. And then it began to decline.
0-1 and a line drive base hit to left to one hopper to Young. That's how the 7th inning gets underway for the Rays.
Kept going down until
Time twisted, but true fact, Red Sox pitchers have struck out 14 or more in the last 2 games.
One example of why this
twisted
was occurring was
hard iced tea is the refreshing hard iced tea. It tastes like real iced tea, be a little twisted.
What happens is
day is done for Stephen Wright.
It became apparent
John Farrell out to take the baseball away.
In some ways by fraud.
Ross coming in, the lefty. That was a nice recovery for the knuckleballer.
And they had complex schemes.
And he gets a warm hand and a chance for a victory here today.
Enron,
we'll be back in a moment.
Houston-based energy company is a good example of this. And what they did is they bought and sold electricity, but they did not produce it. Right? And they kept reporting profits to investors, but they were losing billions of dollars while they were doing this. And the 2 men who were at the head of this were Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling. You may or may not have heard of these men, and they were actually convicted of fraud.
From managing software performance to making the move to the cloud, New Relic provides the most complete.
Many argue that what was happening here is this is all just money on paper, right? And I'm not talking about printed money. I'm talking about, think of your bank today. Think of where your money is today. Probably not many of you actually get a check. I mean, how much cash do you handle at one time? All of this money is just in the air somewhere, right? And there's just a guarantee that it will be there. Well, these guys use that to their advantage. And many argue that this was due to the deregulation of businesses that was started by Ronald, but was really pushed through by Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was absolutely a free trade.
Kayak can't search hundreds of pants for you.
Republican type economic thinker. Sectors like energy,
can search hundreds of travel sites.
Telecommunications, and the stock market trading were the ones who really were fraudulent. And banks really began to do.
You can submit a video that shows personality edited into a commercial showing players' personalities too. The top video airs as a Red Sox commercial. Winning fan gets $1,000. Plus a visit to our broadcast booth. Go to NESN.com and upload your video today.
President Bush and President Obama.
$1,000 and a visit
like bailout GM,
to see Jerry's new sneakers.
Bailout Wells Fargo.
All right.
These large
scattering 9 hits today. Early on, it looked like it might go awry, but he really hung in there, and he got better and better. And he can win
But
it. Gives
with
way to
that
Robbie
said,
Ross Jr., the left-hander from Lexington,
the
Kentucky.
1990s were
Made his season debut on Friday against Tampa Bay
decade for the
after
United
missing
States,
time on a
which is
10-day
kind of
DL because of the flu.
ended with a whimper.
It really hit Robbie.
The real boom was in the mid-1990s.
Feeling just fine
about
right now as a runner at first base.
And this benefited
Nobody out in the seventh. Red Sox with a 2-run lead.
Real wages and income were going up.
And Dickerson, the hitter.
But
he's gone 1 for 3 with a base hit.
Average wages for
that's how the afternoon or the morning began. Now into afternoon.
Non-boss men or boss ladies. If you adjust for inflation,
Ben
they
Taylor
still remain
just
below
recalled
early 1970s.
Is working in the bullpen.
Level. Remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about how after 1973,
Red Sox have liked his work so far.
Real wages kind of stayed static.
Yeah, Red Sox may be thinking about matchups in this inning. You go back-to-back left-handed, so they go to Ross, then they go back to Longoria, which is maybe the reason you see Taylor loosening up in the bullpen right now.
Cost of living, and even though in 1995 people's real wages and income were going up, it still remained below
now in scoring position for the Rays. Nobody out. And Kiermaier, the hitter.
People, once again, like I say, they're getting paid more money, but the cost of living is higher and inflation, so they actually aren't.
He's 2 for 3.
What all of this meant is that in
obviously he's looking to drive in both runs, but if you're going to make it out in this situation, you want to make it to the right side because that will score a run, and you also advance the man to second to go to third base with less than 2 outs.
Bill Gates owned in 2000 as much wealth as
that's easier said than done, especially on pitches like that right there that are called strikes on the outside part of the plate.
I could hear Kiermaier groan when that was a called strike by Angel Hernandez.
Things keep moving to Mexico for cheap labor.
And the 1-1.
Because there's no environmental impact.
Now he has to wail.
And so for
on an outside pitch, 1-2.
In 2000, in the year 2000.
Didn't look very good on that slider right there. We'll see if Ross maybe drops another one on him.
He's done it before. Kiermaier is 0 for 7.
General Motors
against Ross.
Became replaced by
trying to put him away.
As the biggest employer.
Would chase it.
With 1.6 million people.
2-2.
In the United States. And so
Longoria
there's a couple
on
things
deck.
about that. Firstly, if you work for Walmart, you cannot belong to a union. Secondly, if you work for Walmart, that means you're not manufacturing or making anything. Not that there's anything wrong with working at Walmart at all.
Second and third in a 2-2.
That means that instead of the highest.
And they say you get one pitch to hit in every at bat. I don't know if I believe that, but the fact is that was a good one to hit right for Kiermaier. That was a slider that just stayed inside. And that's not where Robbie Ross wants that pitch.
And a lot of people thought.
Way dead and missed, and he got him. He struck him out.
In the 2000s because of the end of the Soviet Union.
That's where he wants it.
The United States and is the powerhouse and everything.
Now they're going to put on Longoria.
Democracy and free trade.
So the new rule where he automatically takes his base with no pitches thrown.
And
that will load him up.
This is unconventional right there. You don't generally see potential go-ahead run walk to first base, but they got to play the percentages. They got the lefty coming up next in Miller. They got the lefty on the mound.
In Israel, you get a more conservative Jewish movement, Islamic fundamentalism, and in
here's the pitch that Kiermaier didn't think was a strike that was called a strike, and put him in a hole right there. Now breaking ball for the strikeout. He was having troubles with that slider all day. Well, I should say all at bat if they were keeping it away from him.
And this intensification of ethnic and racial identities really hits the world.
So bring up Miller. He had a double in the third inning. He is 1 for 3 with an RBI today.
We can see that
man at every base now for Tampa Bay in a danger zone for the Red Sox bullpen here in the 7th. With a 4-2 lead.
There's about 24 million people who come into
Miller
America
certainly a home run
in the
threat.
last 35 years of the century.
And takes
and
the ball.
about 50% of them came from south of
2-0.
the border, 35 from Asia, and a small number from Africa and the Middle East. And only 10% of
Beckham at third.
From 1965 to
Dickerson
2000
at second. Longoria at first.
Europe.
In for a strike at 93.
And unfortunately, there a little slip by Robbie Ross, but he's able to get it over the plate for a strike. There's the fastball, and he's going to pick up the outside corner, but Ross kind of lost his balance after the delivery.
Many of the not only Muslims but immigrants in general.
Just away there,
not
3-1. Good count for Miller.
Anymore.
As an RBI guy, 81
poor,
last year.
Many of them are uneducated who were leaving, or
We
not
got
highly
Souza
educated,
on deck.
who were leaving violent or repressive governments.
Sox have a right-hander ready in the pen.
Cambodia.
And the 3-1.
Syria today, right? It's not.
And he had to throw a strike, and he did.
And it's almost like Miller was taking the whole way that time. He looked like he had no intention of swinging at that pitch, and it was a fastball right down the middle.
In order to get away from violence and repression. But you also especially in the 1980s and 90s, get people from India and South Korea who are well educated.
Leon must have had something on his mind. Ross didn't like it. Now they'll talk about it.
Too many people and not enough upper level jobs. And so by the year 2000, 40% of all immigrants have a college education
key moment
in America.
Here today.
You also get
bases loaded, 3-2, and just got a piece of it.
Wow.
Very protective swing.
That's a good job there by Miller, because that ball's way off the outside edge.
Which is a term that was invented.
He commits to it, and he's able to somehow foul it off. Just get a piece of it to see another pitch.
Mexico becomes the largest
payoff pitch. He got him.
Producer of Spanish-speaking people into America because of its high poverty.
I'll tell you what, that's gutsy by Ross. He falls behind, and then he goes with 2 breaking balls,
and they become
2 sliders to pick up the strikeout. One that was fouled off, this with no contact.
Or children of immigrants.
So out number 2.
Sports, especially baseball.
Now the Red Sox will go back to the bullpen. Ross fired up.
As well, right?
Bases still loaded, but 2 down, and more in a moment.
Or people who ran for president, even, who are children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. Jose becomes, in the year 2000, the most common name for babies born in Texas, and it's the third most common name in California.
The first step towards
crowning Smith is still the most common last name in America, but Garcia, Rodriguez, and other names
last season
of Spanish-speaking individuals become in the top 50
anyone's game
of last names
Today
as well.
Is about your team, your city, and this year could be your year.
Immigrants, and especially immigrants from south of the border, south of Mexico, Latin America, even from South America, remain the poorest group in America because of their low-wage jobs. And conditions lead to almost about 13% living in what the government calls poverty, which is double the national rate. Asian Americans become visible as well. And like we said, you get many well-educated people from Korea, Japan, India, Vietnam, and China as well. And Asian Americans become quite visible in educational circles because they're very tight-knit communities. And they really grasp the idea of college. And so many immigrants and children of immigrants from Asia are in college now or went to college.
Player, Lexus will donate $50 to the Greater Boston Food Bank.
For their household was
made a contribution right now because Robbie Ross had a big K there. So Ben Taylor just brought up to the big league level again from the Paw Sox because Erod is out on paternity leave.
But also it's that
and gets
the United States
a situation thrown right into his lap here. The bases are loaded with 2 down.
That's an understatement right there.
Pretty much has been a black and white.
It's Souza the batter
with race.
So righty. He's 1 for 3 with a base hit.
It's not a black and white issue.
And starts him out with strike 1.
Type of issue. Intermarriages are very common.
John Farrell making the unconventional decision to walk Longoria, representing the go-ahead run.
And 30% of
and get his bullpen guys right into the fire. The 0-1.
And there is data to say that by 2050,
1 ball and 1 strike on
whites
Souza.
will be 50% of the population, 25% Hispanic, And then
Stephen Wright, the pitcher of record, a 4-2 Red Sox lead.
At 13%.
And the 1-1.
So that's one of the
2 balls and 1 strike.
Very close to the same pitch he threw on the first pitch. That was called a strike. This time it's not a strike. It's called outside.
As we speak today.
But so far staying away from Souza with everything.
Is the spread of imprisonment. And as you can see, these are triple bumps here. That means you have too many prisoners.
Taylor with a 2-1.
Interestingly enough,
line drive base hit. They'll chase in Beckham and reload the bases to make it 4-3.
1970s, urban crime rates.
Souza really crunched it for second RBI today. This is a 1-run game.
To the cheap frenetic drug that was very popular in the.
Now the fastball this time tails back more toward the middle of the plate, and the top spin ground ball quickly gets through by Souza. That ball hit hard. Only 1 run can score. Good charge put on out there by Chris Young, and we get a 1-run ball game.
Revolves around drugs.
Yeah, yet again between the Red Sox and Tampa Bay. It's commonplace. Here's Morrison now. His walk popped up and grounded out. 0 for 2. He does have a grand slam in this series. And he'll look at a strike.
So in the 1970s, drug addiction really becomes about the law and not necessarily about rehabilitation, meaning not necessarily a disease anymore.
So Dickerson, Longoria, and Souza on the bases. You get Xander over on their right side.
Most of them
Hernandez all by himself on the left.
Into today.
And pop foul out of play to make it 0-2.
A bit of a change for that because everybody's legalizing marijuana.
Red Sox is trying to hang on to a now 1-run advantage in the 7th.
Excuse me. The majority of people.
That run is charged to Stephen Wright. We give up a leadoff single to Beckham, who just scored. So he allowed 3 runs in 6 innings.
Police tactics get less stringent. Crime rates go down, but the prison population is still going up. So in 2008,
Taylor trying to end it.
It reached 2.2
strikes on Logan Morrison.
People in this country who were imprisoned. That's 10 times as many as the
Line foul back out of play as Morrison stays alive.
And the United States today makes up 1/4 of the entire world.
Trying to get him to chase that high fastball. It was up in the zone, a high strike, but he did foul it off. How about those numbers so far with the bases loaded? 3 for 4. There's that high fastball going away for Morrison.
And we also have several million people who are on parole as well.
They're all
another
loaded up.
Interesting thing about this is
the 0-2 pitch. Left it upstairs and a check swing.
In the 1950s, white people were 70% of the prison population. But by 2000, that's completely reversed. And one main reason was that the harsh penalties for crack cocaine, that is mostly an urban drug. Well, powder cocaine.
Morrison is their top RBI man right now at 10. 1-2.
This is not a good number considering that.
Putting up a very, very tough at bat right here against Taylor.
Don't make up 70% of the United States population.
Once again, that ball a little bit high in the zone, but fouled off by Morrison.
Of ethnic minorities in our prisons than there are in our society. So because
Morrison with
the
3
whites
home
obviously
runs.
Still have the highest population, but the least amount of people.
Good power from the lefty.
Meaning that an African American male
1-2.
would have a 1 in 4 chance.
He really is battling.
Now, and notice the location of all the pitches. All of the pitches above the belt. A lot of high, some higher.
Not saying that anyone you know is going
trying to get him to chase that high fastball. He has been, but he's been fouling him off.
And racial inequality exploded.
So what do they try here as Leona's out for a conversation?
You guys should, this would be an interesting PowerPoint question.
Up 1 ball and 2 strikes.
This was Los Angeles when 4 white
Dickerson at third, Longoria at second, Souza at first, and Weeks on deck.
Rodney King, even though it had been captured on video. They were on video pulling the guy out of his car and just kicking him and beating the crap out.
It's a strikeout team, and Taylor wants one right here.
In 92,
1-2.
LA goes up at
Well outside.
Tried to change up that time and not even close.
Some 52 people died.
He's throwing a couple of change-ups in this at bat. The rest fastballs.
Just in Los Angeles, and it was the largest urban riot since 1863 in New York, when people rioted because President Lincoln instituted the draft during the Civil War in 1860.
Top 7, a run in.
So this kind of just is another example.
One-run game in the 2-2.
This multicultural
high pop up. Pedroia backing out. Betts coming on. Betts wants it, and Taylor gets out of it.
And a lot of people are.
They leave him loaded, and the Red Sox are still up by 1.
Maybe this has something to do with family values, like were they in retreat? Because a 2000 census showed that Americans thought that that their country was in disarray. Half of all marriages.
I'm good. My body doubles are trying on hundreds of pants, so I know I'm getting the right pair.
Oh, kind of like how Kayak searches hundreds of other travel
70%
sites
of all marriages
rental
on the
cars,
West
so you know you're
Coast
making the right
in
decision.
divorce.
Yeah, exactly like
a
how
third
Kayak
of all
does that.
births
They also cut down on crying time.
were to unmarried women, but they're not. But by the year 2000 and into today, it's not
Get
only
the information
teenage
you
women
need with
who
Kayak.
kind of
Travel problem
whoopsies,
solved.
right? But also business professionals as well. So people are deciding to have more children out of wedlock as well. That's not good or bad, but some people would argue that that means that family values are in retreat. 2/3 of married women work outside of the home, and by the year 2008, less than a quarter of all U.S. households were quote-unquote traditional, meaning they had a husband, they had a wife, and they had children, right? And they were married. Only less than a quarter of all households. It's kind of like Modern Family.
MLB opening day.
And gap in income still persists.
The first step towards crowning
for women to men.
King.
By the year 2008,
when cities become rivals again.
If a man and a woman were in the same exact same job,
right now,
the man would be making
$800,
the woman would be making $610
is about your team,
on average.
Your city, and this year,
but
could be
things
your
are changing,
year.
and that's closer than it had ever been. And at the dawn of the new century, women were 60% of college grads, right? There's way more women in college than there are men today. And over 40% of them, 40% of the women who are college grads have some type of advanced degree, a master's or a law degree or a medical degree or a master's of business, things, an MBA, things like that. So, that for women is something that keeps going up, and the pay gap is getting closer. It should be equal, but it's not. But it is definitely getting closer in a lot of areas. Now, lastly, let's quickly talk about what happens to Bill Clinton at the end of his time as president. The intense partisanship of the 1990s plays out in Bill Clinton's impeachment, and it's a bit ironic considering Clinton really was a centrist. He really, which especially economically, he was very much a conservative.
You can customize your batting glove just like Dustin Pedroia at franklinsports.com/custom. Enter the code word NESSON20 to receive 20% off at checkout. Franklin proud to be the official batting glove of Major League Baseball.
Socially liberal. He smoked.
Jerry Remy, Dave O'Brien with you from Fenway. 4-3. Red Sox clinging to that one-run lead now.
And he was at the head.
Tampa Bay has already left 10 men on base. Just had the bases loaded. And got the one-run in.
And the other thing, though, was
they're going to go to their bullpen and bring in the former Yankee Chase Whitley.
And this
he'll get the top of the order. That's Pedroia, Benintendi, and Betts.
He may be. He's definitely in the top 5 when he leaves.
They have 5 hits.
Of president's popularity in history.
Bottom half of the 7th, and a 4-3 Red Sox lead. Trying to take 3 out of 4 here for Tampa Bay.
He is only the second president to ever be impeached, which means impeachment means the process of.
Roy is starting today with a base hit up the middle. Also walked in. He has scored twice.
Get the president out of there. He was impeached. It just didn't work. So he is only the
Tampa
second
Bay has
president
out-hit
to ever
Boston
have
on the
that
day,
happen.
11-8.
Scandals basically abounded the day he took office.
And neither side has taken one out of the
He and Hillary
ballpark yet.
Clinton had profited from a shady real estate deal in Arkansas while he was governor. The next year after he got elected, Paula
Stephen
Jones
Wright can win it.
said he
if
harassed
he gets
her
it,
when
it'll be
he
his
was
first win in
governor of
2017.
Arkansas. And then in 1998, we get the Monica Lewinsky affair. And
Robbie Ross had a huge strikeout. Taylor got the fly out of Morrison. This one popped up and playable. Morrison backing up, and he'll take it at first base for out number 1.
But he kept
Time for our tools of the trade presented by DeWalt FlexVolt.
Well, 3 hits in the game for Benintendi so far today. Goes to the opposite field for a base hit by the dive of Longoria. Then up the middle to drive in 2 runs off the left-hander. And almost like a drag bunt for the third down the first base line. A swing drag bunt. As he beats the pitcher overhead for a slide, the errant throw, or flip I should say, and Benintendi with a 3-for-3 day going.
Showed that
DeWalt FlexVolt is the official power tool of the Boston Red Sox. Benintendi trying to go 4 for 4.
And it's funny, and people in
Mookie
Europe
Betts
were
on
laughing
deck.
at that because, not that I'm saying it's okay, but Europeans expect their politicians to have affairs and not lie about it. But still,
And
they
the
were
0-1.
laughing that we
Never
almost
gets to it.
through a president because
One-run game come that
he was
9th
having
inning.
an affair, which there are
If Kimbrel were to pitch, it'd be on 3 consecutive days.
He didn't throw a lot of pitches in the game yesterday. Put him down pretty easily.
Whether President Clinton is so and so.
He was out in front on that changeup.
We get it.
1-2.
But he lied about it, and he did perjure.
Right now, it's Heath Hembry throwing in the bullpen.
That's just not something we want.
Been fighting off some soreness.
But anyways, the impeachment did not go through. Bill Clinton was not impeached, and once again, it kind of made
And Whitley's 1-2. The base is empty.
Ridiculous.
Line drive slicing.
However,
Dickerson makes the play. Fine play on a run.
Quite
to take away what would have been the 4th hit of the day of Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah, Benintendi very close to being 4 for 4 in this game. Ball slicing away from the left fielder coming off the bat of the left-handed hitter. But a very nice running play there by Dickerson. Completely outstretched.
Remains one of the closest.
Ball gets by him. Benintendi's in scoring position at second base.
In U.S. history. Gore actually won the popular vote.
2 down, Betts the batter. He's hit into a double play, be a single and a run, and he's hit into a force out.
Or basically 1/2 of 1%.
Now hitting .308.
And all of this
and slices that one the other way foul.
The Florida electoral vote. Bush said that he won. And by the way, George Bush's brother is Jeb Bush, the governor of Florida during this time period. Bush says he won. Florida, nobody knew
122 consecutive plate appearances without a whiff.
Basically, whoever wins Florida usually wins the presidential election.
That is the longest such streak in the big leagues right
now.
now.
Democrats say no. We want a hand count. We want
Red Sox up 4-3.
One by hand because
the bottom half of the 7th.
Chads. And so.
And we'll rely on the bullpen today.
In the most powerful country that had ever existed on this planet. Where its citizens are more wealthy and have a higher living standard than anybody in history, people in Florida are still voting by poking holes in pieces of paper.
As far as that particular streak, nobody else in the conversation.
In this piece of paper, sometimes who you
Ramirez
voted for
on deck
wasn't
and the 2-1
because the hole wouldn't be completely poked through, so you'd have more than one hole that looked like
victory
that.
Today, the Red Sox would go to 70-52 all time on Patriots Day.
A lot of these. Oh gosh, pieces of paper. It still makes me.
Red Sox lost their first 3 Patriots Day encounters with Tampa Bay in 99,
has to go to the
2010, and 2012.
And the Supreme Court stops the
Red Sox won the most recent one in
5-4.
walk-off fashion. That one punched toward the alley, splitting the outfielders. That's out of the running track. Betts headed for second base, and he's got himself a double.
What this really showed was how the country
right between Dickerson and Kiermaier for 2.
They got a bad changeup that time too, and jumped all over the high changeup
by the founders, so they
from Whitley. You'll see the location of this pitch.
To someone who did not.
And Betts does a great job staying on that under spin line drive. That's going to make it out to the wall. So Mookie in scoring position with 2 outs. See if Hanley can drive in another run today.
Society is what we have.
Well, Hanley did back in the first inning with a base hit instead of walking a ground out. We're going to give that pen some wiggle room here as we start to get to the late stages on Patriots Day.
If you count both the congressional and presidential
toward the middle, Miller,
races,
second baseman,
he
gets him to retire the side. 1 man left. Going to the 8th. Red Sox up by 1.
$1.5 billion, meaning that money dominates politics. And there's this real disconnect in the year 2000 between politicians and the regular people of America, because
Kayak can't tell you if you should cut off your man bun, but Kayak Price Forecast Tool can tell you if you should book your flight.
And
Kayak,
more people actually
solved.
watched the Nixon-Kennedy debate in 1960 than voted in the 2000 election, even though there's well over 100 million more people in this country. So from the year 1960 to 2000, there was this real decline in voter turnout, and there was a real disconnect between politicians and the people who they're supposedly trying.
There's a power to
who they're serving.
Almost magical quality.
So we'll just end. So that's another interesting idea. So we'll just end with this idea of exceptional America. In 2000, we're living longer than ever before. And we have the material comfort that people in, say, the year 1900 does not have even imagined. Because in 1900, just 100 years ago, which isn't that long of a time period,
color, this exact shade of purple,
a typical American had no phone, indoor plumbing, car, or a high school education.
Makes things happen. It brings people together.
Life expectancy for a man in the year 1900
out west. Yes to low fares with nothing to hide. That's transparency.
2000, I don't know what it is today. Probably
8th inning coming your way. Red Sox with a bullpen in full force. And Heath Hembree, who has not pitched in 4 days, will take over now. Into a scoreless inning in 2/3 on Thursday in a victory against the Pirates with 2 strikeouts.
In incoming quality than any other economic.
They'll be taking on the Tampa Bay Rays order of Weeks, Norris, and Beckham, scheduled hitters here in the 8th. Tampa Bay has out-hit Boston 11-9, but the Sox are up by a run.
Civilization went 60%.
And just in case they get back to the top of the order, you see Robbie Scott loosening up the left-hander.
Religious. It doesn't matter what religion you are. 60% claim that.
John Farrell trying to squeeze out a victory.
26%
his strategy paid off.
Were the actual Roman
not necessarily by the book,
and 11%.
But it worked out. To walk Longoria would be so dangerous. And has hit 30 career home runs against the Red Sox.
We had almost 12,000 people.
That's something you see a manager do every day.
By guns.
You like those lefty-lefty matchups coming up, though.
Think about it. That's like 40 people.
And that worked out.
Every single day, almost 38.
Weeks last time up, doubled over the head of Mookie Betts,
deaths in Germany in that same
which was rather surprising. It looked like the wind took it.
54
and the sun may have played a role in that too. And possible that Mookie misjudged the ball a little bit.
And also,
but nothing came of that.
Countries in the world have no.
Although Weeks was certain he had a home run.
Afterbirth, right?
So he launched into the home run trot. And he had to call him back to second base.
The United States, Liberia, which is a dictatorship, Papua New Guinea, and Swaziland. Those are the 4 countries in the world that don't have national paid leave for women after they've given birth. So there's
we're working in the 7th of the Red Sox 13 games
and economic
this season
at America in the 1990s in the year up into the year 2000 with President Bush's
so he has been fairly busy.
We have living standards that are unheard of, but just like everything, every era of American history, there's good and there's bad.
And a 1-2. Down he goes. As he strikes out for the third time today. One away.
Steady diet of cutters that time from Hembree to pick up that strikeout and just keep it.
And it has more money than it ever has, but then we know what happens in 2001, which completely changes our society also. So, and we'll talk about that next week. So with that, that is your PowerPoint for the week. Hope you enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel.